The Motivational Mindset Podcast with Switch Motivation.
Hello, my name's Richard Knight and welcome to episode 3. This week I'm chatting to Sally Earnshaw, the MD for Culture Change Consulting at Gallagher, otherwise known as the Chief Oompher. She's got a passion for celebrating the human spirit and specialises in culture change, leadership development and customer-focused leadership. This week we talk all about Sally's motivators, how she maintains that high energy, and also midlife motivation. Enjoy. Thank you very much for being on the podcast, and over to you. Who are you? What do you do? And one question for you, Chief Oompher.
Just wondered how long it would be until you got to the thing. Okay, so I'm Sally Earnshaw. I'm MD of a culture change practice which sits inside a big corporate organisation called Gallagher. But more importantly, last 20 to 25 years, I've spent my entire life helping, I suppose the official sentence would be, helping organisations to create an environment where purpose, people and performance can really thrive. That's sort of the tagline. But to your point, I think what I've really been doing is for the last 20 years, bringing a bit of oomph and a bit of energy to organisations, anything to do with where people are concerned, trying to make a living, trying to keep people buoyant while we go through such a ridiculously changing landscape. That's my bag.
That's pretty much it. Simple stuff then, really. You've obviously got lots of time on your hands. Not because I see you zooming around all over the place on LinkedIn and you're in various countries working with various teams. So yeah. It sounds like there's a big appetite for this motivation, the oomph stuff out there. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, well, interestingly, I think there was always, historically, a lot of the work that I would get involved in would be around performance. So, and I know that you're big in the CX space, and I have been as well. And there was a lot of desire for how do we get more out of people. Interestingly, last 5 or 6 years, it's been much more about how do we help people to stay buoyant, to be engaged, to be, wanting to turn up and contribute and be part of something, especially when the world is changing so blooming fast. Global pandemics keep knocking us off piste. Organizations had, to some extent, big punches in the gut for some versus other organizations who massively scaled through the pandemic. So what seems to have happened is whether, whatever type of business you are, however big you are, the last 5 years will for sure have created a background of massive change. Mm-hmm. And when there's a lot of change going on in organizations, it used to be, and like you'll get this, organizations probably visited strategy about every 3 to 5 years. And now they're having to visit strategy, every 12 months in reality. And so there's just this change in what leaders need to know and understand and be able to do in keeping people connected to the direction of travel, keeping people focused on the right activity to drive success, keeping people, as I say, buoyant and resilient, because if there's so much going on, it can be quite a stressful landscape, I think, right now. And I just think that, demands on leaders have just become greater and greater and greater. And therefore, understanding the little small bit you need to understand about human beings in order to know, where to tap to get the best out of them. So they rock up, they want to be part of it and they want to contribute, I think is a very different set of skills from perhaps what it was 10 years ago. And so that, is it about just umphing? Well, not really, but is it about, helping leaders to just really understand how do you get the best out of people when there's so much going on, and it's really, changing landscape would be the phrase, but it's like there's just loads going on, and people are, and resilience comes up constantly as a theme.
Oh, that's a good one. Yes, love that one. I'll come back to that actually if we can. So just in terms of this umphing piece, and you've obviously done that, you've got that focus in terms of corporates and teams and all this lovely stuff. What about you though? Because whenever I see you on LinkedIn or anywhere else, you've got that huge smile on your face and there's always something brilliant happening, and you sit there and you think, is she taking something? No, I don't think that's it. And what I think is what's your personal motivation? What does motivation mean to you then?
Oh, that's such a great question. And because I knew you were going to be asking me about motivation, I actually searched up what does motivation mean, right?
Brilliant. Well done. You get a score, get a tick. Well done.
Dictionary definition. Because I was like, oh, God's going to ask me all about motivation. I better sound credible. But so I looked it up. And actually, because you're the motivation expert, you see, and so, and actually, when you look at the dictionary definition, it just says really simply the reason why anybody behaves the way that they behave.
Hmm.
So I was like, okay, so what is the reason why I behave the way I behave? To your point, and it really got me thinking about where does motivation come from? If you're asking about me personally, I sort of split it into two sort of camps, and then we can dig and delve into it as
Hmm.
much as you want. So I was thinking about where does the drive side of my career and kind of what I've got involved in come from, and actually that comes back to one of my I think you might call it in the professional sphere of motivation, intrinsic motivation. I don't know, you'll
Hmm.
correct me if I'm wrong, but like at the roots of who I am as a person, I've got this massive thing about responsibility, accountability. Like if I say I'll do something, I do.
Hmm.
And so I think what's created a lot of the intrinsic motivation has been if I have promised somebody I'll deliver in a role, or I have committed to something to a client, or that drive to make sure I've done what I've said I would do. That's what drives a lot of that
Yeah.
getting out of bed and just getting it done.
Hmm.
And so there's a big part of me which is about responsibility, and if you say you'll do it, you do it. But then there's the other side of it, which I had a big chat with my other half actually about whether this is an intrinsic motivator or not. But the other side of it is that energy kind of
Hmm.
joy thing, and whether that's a motivation or not, I don't know. That's kind of just how I like to show up in the universe, right? It's like I have this phrase which is, if you're not laughing, what else is there? Like I love to make people laugh. I'm
Hmm.
not sure if I'm very funny or not, but I love making people laugh. I love laughing myself. I love
Hmm.
surrounding myself with people who are joyous by nature. And because I kind of go, we're on this life for such a short amount of time. You get, this speck in a landscape of the universe. So you might as well make the most of it. So for me, a lot of it's about what makes you happy, where is joy? And I love bringing that to other people. So if there's a way of umphing somebody's big event or doing a keynote, or
Hmm.
for me, one of the motivators is around just making people feel good about what they do. And if we've only got one life, let's all be a bit happier and just kind of have a bit of a laugh. There's a phrase in my team which we call "hold it lightly," which is
Yeah.
like, what, no matter what, you might edit this out. No matter if the shit's hitting the fan, it's
No,
like
that's it. It's definitely it.
hold it lightly. It's like
Yeah.
what else is there? I don't know.
Yeah. No. No, I absolutely, totally agree. I think it's just that the reason why we're here. I mean, we could get into these massive ethereal conversations, couldn't we, about why are we here, what is the universe, and all this sort of stuff,
Yeah.
which are great conversations to have. However, we haven't got enough time. But I think also from a listener's point of view, it's okay. They're sitting there thinking, yeah, but you're talking about motivation. What is it? But that idea that we're interacting with people a lot, and we've got to take the time to understand where they are and what they're doing, but also we've got to enjoy things ourselves. And I think this is an interesting one that I've been speaking to some people about, is about being a bit more selfish in
Right.
life as well, because
Yeah.
often we're taught, oh no, you can't think about yourself, you must think about others. And of course you do, of course you do.
Yeah.
However, if we're not in the right space as an individual,
Yes.
the actual energy that we're giving out isn't going to be right for the people we're interacting with. So we've got
Yes.
to make sure that's correct first of all. And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that's that intrinsic motivation. Where does it come from? Do we all have it? Can we be motivated by others? Is always another question as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Just on that spectrum that you talked about. So this
yeah.
comes up on LinkedIn all the time. LinkedIn's full of helpful blogs about, what you should and shouldn't do, and the 5 a.m. club and all of that stuff. And
Hmm.
I mean, we're all just making it up. Nobody really knows, right? So we're all just making it up, trying to make a living and do the best we can with the short amount of time we've got. But I find that quite fascinating, that dynamic of um the being selfish with your time so that you can get done what needs to be
Hmm.
done, and to be quite, I'm using the word selfish because that's the word that you use, but that
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
protecting your time,
Yep.
managing your personal resilience, being clear about what you want, versus the other dynamic of that, which is the pursuit of I know you don't want to go into the whole purpose thing, but I do have this view that we are here to in some way make a difference through what we can do with others and in our communities and stuff. So you kind of go in the pursuit of helping others versus the pursuit of helping ourselves. like that's such an interesting,
Mm.
like, where's the right part on that? And I don't know what the answer is either. It's like, it's here. I don't know where it is, but it's like, where's the right answer on that?
Yeah.
In terms of, what, because if you give too much to others, then you might, damage your own whatever,
Yeah.
you might
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
too much.
Yeah.
Equally, if it's all about the pursuit of self,
Yeah.
I kind of wonder what we're all here for. So I find
Well,
that fascinating. Where do we draw the
yeah,
line?
well, that's a really interesting one, and actually, James on the first podcast mentioned that James Self, who's a motivational map creator and
Yes,
another motivational guru. He talks about the searcher motivation, which is about that reason why. Why are we here? What is our why? And it goes back to Simon Sinek's sort of idea about the why, and it's true. People don't go to work just to earn money.
yeah,
We go for other reasons, and there's lots of motivation out there, lots of motivators, and we all have them in different levels,
yeah.
and they all make a different impact at different points in our careers as well, so they can shift around a bit. But I think when you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs,
Mm,
you've got at the top the spiritual side of things, that strong purpose piece, and
yes,
that absolutely comes into that motivation piece. And it really sounds, going back to where you're coming from, really sounds like that gives you energy when you're in front of people. I know you do a lot of keynote speaking as well.
totally.
When you're up there, you can literally see the energy coming off you, even in those photos and things like that people can then draw on, and you're drawing from them. So there's almost that sort of synergistic approach to it, which is really nice to see. So
Yeah,
it does
no,
does make a big difference.
totally does. I think that's partly there's a two-way motivation there. There's the motivation to want to bring energy and bring joy. And actually, quite a few people say to me, "You've got so much energy. Where do you get it from?"
Mm.
And my answer is always, it's free and it requires no skill. And I'm running at that every day of the week. But it's true, isn't it? It's like, you've got so
Yeah.
much energy. I kind of go, there's no skill in that. There is skill in many things in life that I'm not good at, but there's no skill. I think energy is a choice,
Mm-hmm.
plus a little bit of discipline. There are definitely, if you want to, to be a high energy
Mm.
human being, there's definitely an element of the discipline of making sure that you are, but I believe very much in the pursuit of taking care of your physical well-being in
Okay.
order to influence your mental well-being,
Mm-hmm.
because it's really hard to bring energy when you are not taking care of those things. So if we're not getting enough sleep, if we're drinking too much, if we're not
Mm-hmm.
creating space to be around trees, if we're not breathing, if we're not doing those things, and I'm not an expert in that, I just know sleep, good food, it's not hard.
Yeah.
Just making sure that you take care of your physical self
Mm-hmm.
does allow you. So is there a skill in being energetic? I think not, but I think there is a discipline in making
That's
sure that
interesting.
you take care of yourself to
Yeah.
the extent that you can bring an abundance of joy and energy to any given situation.
So from your point of view, then, I mean, it's something people speak a lot about. Do you have those certain patterns in place? Do you go out and do your regular exercise on a daily basis, etc., etc.? Is that something that
Oh,
features for your sort of motivational or energy levels?
I'm one of those, the watcher
Oh
people.
yeah, I've got one of those as well.
I'm like, but the thing is, I'm not. I, we've all got our different, places on the spectrum with this stuff. Like, I'm not a marathon runner. I'm not one of those. I don't drink. I only drink
Yeah.
water. I'm not that end, right? But I am at the. I think, like many, I do a blog called Female Middle-Aged Business Traveller.
Mhm.
I think I've got a sort of a community of people who are very similar to me. It's like, we work blooming hard. We do it right most of the time,
Mhm.
but we also like a few glasses of wine. That's where I am. But this is what I like. I have little set targets every day.
Okay.
I try
Yeah.
and do at least 12,000 steps a day. I do that through a couple of dog walks if I'm at home. But because I now track that, if I'm away, which I'm away a lot, and I'm not walking the dogs, that's my benchmark for. And actually, historically, if I was away, staying in a hotel, I might not have gone and found somewhere to go out for a walk. Whereas now, because I've got that 12,000 steps is sort of my
Yeah.
target per day,
Mhm.
then I go, I'll walk at the beginning of the day, walk at the end of the day. So I love walking, especially with dogs. I am definitely a, in bed before 10 person, and during
10. Blimey, that's late.
I've read somewhere that you should try to start your sleep at least 2 hours before midnight, because the hours before midnight are the most crucial
Crucial.
for Yeah, and I don't know who
Yeah,
I read that with, but anyway, so try and
interesting.
be bed before
Yeah,
10
yeah, good.
and try not to drink too much alcohol
Hmm.
during the week. That's kind of, it's the goal.
Yeah,
It's never always fulfilled. But so yeah, I kind of keep myself healthy. I eat healthily,
yeah,
so just those simple things, that's my
brilliant.
tracking every day.
Yeah,
And that
nice. Yeah.
um, keeps me sort of physically healthy. And I do notice a massive difference on my
Hmm.
tracker. If you've got this, I get the where it tells you what what's it called, the body your body battery. You
Oh
got body
yes, yeah, yeah,
battery.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it
yeah,
tells you whether you've
yeah.
re-energized it. And I tell you now, if I'm ever on 100, you're in trouble because you think this is.
What are you on today then? Because I'm struggling to keep up anyway. So,
Today's a 92 day.
oh, is it a 92? Okay. And it's really interesting though, because that motivational level can be, you can measure it
Yeah.
and you know when it's dropping. So
Yes.
here's the next question for you then.
Yes. Big
If
enough.
it does happen, or when it does happen, and your motivational levels starting to go down and those energy levels are dropping,
Yeah.
what are the signs for you? How do you know that you need to perhaps take a step back, or adjust what you're doing? Or does that happen, or are you still
Yeah.
just
No.
keep going?
It totally does. I think it manifests in two ways. So I definitely know I'm not nearly as creative. I think like loads of people, if I'm tired, I'm not as creative. So if I wake up and I'm not sure whether it's a good thing. You wake up and you look at the body battery and you go, oh no, it's 35. I'm in
Yeah.
trouble. But mindset wise, I'm not sure that's a good thing. But so if I ever if I'm feeling tired, if I've had a stressful couple of days or whatever, and my body battery's a bit lower, I tend not to be as creative. So I know the thinking's not going to be as good. So I wouldn't attempt to do, write a piece or do something really
Hmm.
intense for a client. On those days, I would tend to do more interaction stuff because that kind of raises the energy anyway. So I
Great.
try and manage my days around,
Hmm.
what I've got the energy for. But I suppose on the other side of the fence as well, what I've noticed is the ability to manage quite stressful situations diminishes with lower levels of body
Hmm.
energy, i.e., that I think we can all handle much more stress. We're more resilient when we're, disciplined with the physiology and the healthy mindset. So I've noticed if it all gets a little bit too stressful and I'm running at it a bit too hard. Sometimes I can't control that. Sometimes that's just the nature of the work. But my tolerance of stress is lower, and then frankly, my team would tell you I am not that much fun to be around. So, and I'm really conscious of that because that's not, my pursuit in life is not to be, to be a nightmare to work with. So
That's
I
interesting
quite
though.
like it when people say to me, actually, you're being a
Yeah.
bit of a dick. Can you back off? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's really a good marker in terms of that, people being aware of your motivational levels, your energy levels at that particular time,
Yes.
because it can impact others quite significantly, and also from a team point of view as well. You mentioned your team there. When somebody is drawing energy from different areas or isn't drawing enough, etc., their behaviors can then change and actually change in certain ways and be quite abrasive to a
Yeah.
certain extent. and
Yeah.
and, and oftentimes we can see that from a team setup point of view, that you don't necessarily have different personalities in a team. You have different motivators or
Yes.
different motivational levels, because some
Yeah.
people are loving, I want to earn money, that motivates me, give me the money. And
Yeah.
other people are going, yeah, but I want to make a real difference in the world.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
those two are really quite different motivators. We've all got them. We've got that because you need money
Yeah.
right now, but you also need a purpose. So
Yeah.
if it's out of balance in teams, it can be quite interesting in terms of the way they're working together.
Yeah. No, totally.
So,
By the way, one activity I did with my team, which anybody listening to this, if anybody is, the
oh, how very dare you? I've got 3 listeners already. Yes.
oh, that's what they listen to me. So we did this little activity, which was really brilliant. We thought it was really good. We each of us thought about. So we came to a conversation, and we all had to talk about what it looks like when we're at our best,
Mhm.
which was quite interesting. And we sort of all agreed with each other and said, "Yeah, we see that." But then we also said,
Mm.
what does it look like when I'm at my worst? And so we had a really lovely moment of us all, because we all respond differently when we're not at our best. So one of my team tends to talk a lot and much faster when they're stressed out. It's quite hard to keep up, and we're all different in the way that that shows up. So we had a conversation about it, and then we created code words. So it's like, what do we say when you're doing that to sort of call you out of it?
Yeah.
And so the code word for that team member, he certainly won't mind me sharing it with you, is oxygen. So the minute he starts going, one of us will go oxygen, and he'll know to stop. And so it was just a lovely shorthand for being able to. And the code word for me when I'm being a bit overbearing, when I'm stressed, is control. People just go control, and it's like, that means you're being a control freak. Back off. And it's just much nicer, I think, and kinder. To just have quick code words that you can cut through. So we did that as a team, and it was really good, actually, because we're all different, as you know. So that was really helpful.
So when you have, if those motivation levels and the energy levels have gone down, what do you do to re-energize? Do you get more sleep? Do you just do the things you should have been doing and focus on that, or are there other things that you do, sort of going away and sitting in a darkened room, or how does that work?
I think generally speaking, I just know what it takes to be able to be in a really good headspace for dealing with whatever needs to be dealt with. So it is about sleep, and it's about making sure that I've taken care of myself. So I often, if I'm really tired, I just go back to sleep. I'm just have a really early night, and I'll start fresh tomorrow, and I'll make sure that I'm really good with what needs to be done. But and again, everybody's different, aren't they? But if I am just not in the right headspace for stuff, I'll try and put work around me, which is the stuff that I find enjoyable. I love being around people. So if I've not got masses of creative energy because I'm a bit tired, or there's, for whatever reason, I just try and put myself in meetings with people that I love working with, or just in situations where I know it's going to be really easy to bring energy to it, because it's the fun stuff of the job. You can't always control that, and sometimes you have to get through meetings that you don't really want to be in, whatever. But I do think there's something about just being aware of your levels of presence. So often I talk about the 3 circles of presence with leaders, which is, circle 1 is when you've diminished attention, either because you're not paying attention, or because you're not interested because it's boring, or because actually you're not willing to bring what needs to be brought. Circle 3 is more the being a bit overbearing, and it's sort of my way or the highway. And then circle 2 is that really lovely zone of being fully present and connected and in the right space with somebody. And I think just being really aware of your movement through the circles helps me to go, am I in a bit of 3 at the minute, or am I in a bit of 1, and having a word with myself and going, come on, get in 2, because that's choice. At that point, I think that's choice.
Definitely. I think the choice thing comes into it massively, doesn't it? In terms of that motivation piece, it's quite interesting to hear about, doing the things that you enjoy. And I think this is one of the simple things about motivational mindsets are we naturally enjoy certain things.
Yes.
And there's certain things that I just run away from. Sitting here, chatting with you, doing the podcast, I love it, because exactly your point, speaking to people gives me energy. I draw that energy off people. So if I am feeling low, I can pretty much detect why that might be. If I've been sat in front of my computer filling in a spreadsheet for hours and hours, strangely enough, I feel my motivation starting to wane a little bit. If I'm at networking dues, if I'm at meetings, if I'm face to face with people, you can literally feel the lift. I'm tired after it, absolutely wiped out sometimes, but actually I can just feel it. And that's different for everybody. So everybody listening out there, that may not be you. That may be I want to sit in front of a spreadsheet and do some working out and getting into the detail, because I love that. Great. So if I think you're to your point, if you can identify what gives you that little bit of buoyancy when you're doing certain things, it doesn't mean you have to be brilliant at it, because I think one of the key things as well is that motivation doesn't equal skill level. Motivation level doesn't equal skill level. It's like you mentioned earlier about your skills. You've got energy. It doesn't take skill. Motivation is motivation, and it comes from whatever. You might get it from being creative, but a crap artist, that's fine. You love it, do it.
Definitely me.
Some people might go on.
It does vary though, doesn't it? And you mentioned this before, and I think this is really true.
Hello, hope you're enjoying this episode. When you've finished, why not subscribe to the Motivational Mindset podcast? to learn more about motivation in business and beyond. Thanks. Now, back to the podcast.
That our motivators change, or motivators or so I've referred to it as our human needs. You mentioned the hierarchy of needs triangle, but there are, according to some other body of work, 6 fundamental human needs, and we all need a bit of all of them, but they are more prevalent at certain stages in our life. So and this will make you laugh, I think, actually, because one of the, I won't remember all 6 of them probably, but there's like the human need for what was the first one now? So there's contribution, and then there's recognition, and then there's growth, and then there's certainty, uncertainty, and there's a 6th one which I can't remember. But it varies depending on where you are in your life. And what's fascinating is, at certain stages in our lives, you might have more of a motivation for stuff that just gives you the certainty of paying the bills because you've got kids in school, and it's like we have to live somewhere and we have to have stability. And I think definitely there's a phase in people's lives where they might not be choosing to do all of the things that they want to do because we have responsibility for some certainty in other people's lives that live around us, and especially family, versus at other stages in your life where there might be more freedom to do some of the other things that might be motivators that you can choose to do. Example, my daughter's 20. She's off traveling the world because I said, well, you have no responsibility, move, just travel, see the world, versus, which is exactly what I intend to do in the next phase of my life, which is, once they've all gone, I'm off. But it's like, for the last probably 10 to 15 years, having that responsibility for kids has meant that I hope I've always done what I enjoy doing, but there's certainly been an element of what I've done that's been about making sure that I earn at a certain level. And, it's like, it's not all choice, I don't think, in terms of what our motivators are. I don't know whether that's in your line of work, whether
I agree. Yeah. And I think it sort of, it comes to that point that we spoke about before we got on this recording here. And we sort of spoke about this middle-age motivation, for want of a better term. I'm certainly looking like I'm coming to that sort of time in my life where I'm probably going into the second half of that century. I know it's hard to believe, really, but we spoke briefly, didn't we, about that whole idea of actually a lot of people I speak to are, I'm nearly retired. It's nearly time to stop. We've only got another 5 years to go. And for me, how does that make you feel? Because I don't really know how it makes me feel.
On Facebook, I keep getting adverts for, God knows how technology works, and I'm sure it's listening in all the time, and this is a whole universe I don't know, but I'm constantly getting adverts from like financial planning companies saying here's how to retire at 55, which I'm really not that far off. So when we say middle age, that means we now have to live to 104. Otherwise we're not middle aged. But I keep getting these like adverts, and it makes me laugh. Also makes me quite sad because I'm like, oh my God, I am the target market for those ads now. But so there's a guy called Gary V on LinkedIn. I don't know if you follow any of Gary V's stuff. He's built loads of businesses. Gary VaynerMedia was one of the big companies that he's well known for, but he's a big speaker now in this sort of space, and he's constantly on about the fact that we live a lot longer now, and therefore the number of entrepreneurs that we are seeing and should be seeing taking a complete career change in their 50s, 60s, 70s and 80s, because we can. And he's saying, you get into your 50s, you should be thinking about what's the next. With all of this abundance of experience you've now got, how can you apply that to the next phase of your, of what you could be doing next? I don't know. I mean, I still know lots of people my age who are definitely in I'm on a plan to retire at sort of 58. Honestly, I can't think of anything worse. I hope to be still doing something, and maybe somebody will continue to pay me for it. I don't know. Like, way into my 70s. My mother is 78. Hope she won't mind me sharing that. But and up until a couple of years ago, she was still working she was a teacher all of her life, and she was still working as a teaching assistant assessor for our local council. So can work till, and she's fully compass mentis and could still be working now. So I don't understand the desire that people have to retire at 55. I mean, it's everybody's choice, and if that's what people want to do, I'm just not sure
Yeah.
what I would do.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, it's a very good point, and I think we're in the same sort of boat. Careers, as you say, things change throughout your career. Your motivators are going to be moving around to a certain degree, and the fact that you've had chance to do all these great things doesn't need to come to an end because society says it needs to come to the end. And I think that has a massive impact on motivation as well.
Yeah,
It's almost that people are reading into and seeing on social media and do all of these sort of things about, well, this is you're pretty much done, you can sit
yeah,
back now and let everything carry on around you, and you've got your money and you do
yeah,
the change is so quick, everything we're going through. And to your point, my kids are 22 and 18, 19.
mm,
Exactly the same thing. My daughter did a gap year, went out and did some great stuff. My son's over in Canada doing great, working in ski resorts and doing like marvelous stuff over there, and they're
yeah,
loving life, and it's something that you're encouraging. And that motivation that we have around that and energy is drawn by somebody else as well.
yeah,
It
yeah, yeah.
comes to somebody else. People get an idea. You can't give people motivation. You
No,
can give them an environment or an understanding of life that helps them motivate themselves.
yeah.
So I think that change in our views as we are moving through our age ranges is quite marked now, in
Yeah, yeah,
terms of
yeah.
what you can and can't do. You can keep
Well,
going.
you can keep going, but also I think just going back to the kid thing, the sort of whatever generation they are now. What are they now? Gen Z, Gen what? I
Z,
don't know.
Z,
I don't know. Are we
I-
back to A yet? I don't know. I don't know. I know mine hasn't got a letter in front of it. That's what I know. So old. Um, but and if motivation is just the reasons why people do something, I think the world has changed so much, but our models for life have not caught up. What I mean by that
okay.
is,
Hmm.
um, the world has changed. If you remember when you and I were at university, there wasn't an internet. I know that sounds very surprising given how youthful we both look, but there wasn't an internet. And the birth of the internet has changed everything
Mm.
in the sense that you can now, set up your own business relatively easily. You can sell stuff, you can, market, you can build a web, anybody can build a website. So all of the models for, what was the right thing to be doing in right and inverted commas. You came out of school, you most likely, had a plan to either go to university or go straight to work. You then worked maybe at the same company. And there was a model recently, which was, and if you leave a company in less than a year, then the world deems that to be not committed. Do you remember? It's like,
Yeah,
what is
yeah,
that?
that's
Right?
hilarious. Yeah.
Hilarious. So there's all these rules, society rules, like you do,
Yeah.
and it's I find it fascinating because my eldest daughter, who's no plan to go to university, she says to me, "But should I? Like, is it the right thing to do?" And I'm like, "There is no right thing to do in today's economy. It's like it's almost like there's so much choice, there's so much you could apply your motivation to." In today's world, it almost feels like there's too much choice. It's like
Mm.
there's so many possibilities. How do you ever choose?
Hmm.
Because in our day, you did sort of leave school, you went to uni,
Yeah.
you got a job, and then you sort of saw what happened.
Yeah.
I think now this anybody can be an entrepreneur, anybody can go and do anything. You can live anywhere and work. So
Mm.
where do you live, for God's sake? It's like you can work from anywhere. So where do you choose to live? It's like there's so much that you could choose, which you might say that's brilliant, but I just wonder
Mm.
if
Yeah.
our younger generation, I think they're struggling with
Yeah.
what's the right thing to do because there's no model for it anymore.
Exactly. My daughter is exactly the same thing. She's now at university. She's made a choice, but that agonizing about, well, I don't know what to do. I don't know where I need to be going. She knew she wanted to go to university, and that was fine. And my son hasn't gone to university.
Yes.
22. Oh my God. And what's he going to do? He's a failure. He's a failure in the eyes of society, isn't he? It's hilarious. But yeah, you're quite right. There's lots of choice out there. And I think that focusing on what motivates people and what gives you energy is the key thing to understand. What
Yeah.
gives me joy? Back to your point. How can I have fun? How can I be brave? What gives me that energy? I'll go
Yeah.
off and do that.
Yeah.
Not what do I need to tick in a box to put on a
Yeah.
CV so that an employer will go, yes, you're the one we want.
Yeah.
Because I know from your LinkedIn as well that you're quite passionate about the whole educational system as well. in terms of going through. And myself and my wife Lucy, who you know, we both used to be teachers, and we've done the educational piece, and we've seen it go round and round and round, and we've come back, and our kids have gone through exactly the same thing, and they've
Yeah,
struggled. I
yeah,
don't know any children who like education anymore because they're
yeah.
struggling so much with this archaic
System.
way of doing
I
things.
know. Do you know what? I don't know where. I mean, this is probably a whole other podcast because I don't even know where to start. I've generated a bit of a community on LinkedIn who
Yeah.
we're all complaining about it constantly. It's not in my nature to complain. My nature is to do something, but I don't know what to do. And you kind of sit there and go, it's clearly wrong. It only services a very small percentage of children who actually have got good memories and can rote learn stuff quite quickly. My middle boy, brilliant memory.
Yeah.
But my daughter's creative, and she really struggled to pass the ridiculous tests that are supposed to be a judge of their capability.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and my youngest has managed to actually get kicked out of private school, which I think is quite a. I mean,
Oh,
that's
excellent. That's
quite
good effort. That's a good one
achievement.
for the CV.
I know, it's a great one. I was like that. I mean, we pay and you still got kicked out, so that's amazing. But the point is because it only services a very
Yeah.
small percentage of kids, and I'm, as you can probably imagine, and I know that you see some of my posts, I am so passionate about the idea that every single human being can be on our planet and do something they love, and we shouldn't have a system in place that tells kids they're smart or not smart, bright,
Mm-hmm.
not bright. You pass, you don't. You're one of the right ones, and you're not. And it's like, no, they're all of these brilliant capabilities that are sadly lost entirely to a system that says unless you can rote learn and memorize and pass a test, you're no good to us. And actually, what I say to my three and any other child of any other human being on the planet that comes anywhere near me, I work in big corporate world all of my life, and I can tell you the sorts of skills that we want inside big corps are people who are committed, energetic, joyous,
Yeah.
can run at things, can push through, but will find a way no matter what, responsible, accountable, driven, creative, a bit daft, a bit bonkers, all of the above. Like that's what works well in society and life, in businesses. Not people who can say, I managed to pass a test.
Yeah.
Because we've got the internet. If we don't know
Well,
search it.
exactly. It doesn't. I don't need to know that anymore. I need to know where to find it, but I
Yes,
don't need to know it. And
yeah,
and I think there's so many people struggling to let that go. Not
yeah,
because it's through the fault of their own, because it's just the way it was ingrained, wasn't it? As you go through life, this is what you did.
yes,
But now the choices are there, and I think absolutely we need to be focusing on the will piece. Hire for the will, and train the skill. That whole adage is absolutely true. I
yeah.
wouldn't even consider employing somebody just based on their qualifications, and no, and I don't think anybody ever would.
Yes,
I
I
mean,
think people
it's
do. And yet you see all of these high pressure situations where, I don't know, you believe what you read on, not much of it actually, but there are lots of bodies of research that say kids are under more pressure to pass tests these days. Whether that's true or not, I don't know.
Mhm.
But I kind of go, there's really no need for them to be under pressure to pass tests because nobody cares once you get, obviously if you want to be a doctor and you've got to pass a test to get to the university, fine. But the vast majority of the world doesn't care. I don't think anybody's ever asked me what I got in my GCSEs. I don't think anybody's ever asked me what I did for my degree, which is hilarious. It's nothing to do with what I do now for a living. So it's almost like
Exactly,
if we could help kids to understand what their motivators are in school a lot earlier, um,
exactly.
then we can help them to find a path which is, where they're going to find most of their
Yeah.
energy.
Strangely enough, the motivational maps do a youth map,
Do
which is
they?
quite interesting. Yeah, yeah, absolutely for
Oh,
for kids.
cool.
Yeah, so that when they fill in the short questionnaire, it gives them an idea of those 9 motivators. And there's
Right.
a copy for the child. There's a copy for the teacher, gives them an idea about what the teacher needs to focus on,
Oh,
and there's a copy for
wow.
the parent. So
Yeah.
there's this holistic approach to right. This is where you want to go. Do you remember those tests when you're at school? And some people might remember this if they're listening, where you put your preferences into a computer, and it was like a green screen computer, and then it would put out a printout, and it would say, right, when you leave school, these are the jobs that you'll be good at. Do you remember that?
I still use that because
No
because
way.
my son came back. I don't know whether they put it into a computer, but so he
Yeah,
came back and he said, we've done some testing, psychometrics, whatever they were,
yeah.
and they gave him a list of jobs that he would
Jobs.
be good at. And I was like, no, and obviously they're like, it's like there's so many more jobs. I think that's one of the big
Yeah,
problems. There's so
yeah,
many more jobs in the world than are known to anybody. It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
my kids still can't describe what I do for a living. In my youngest after school, what does your mom do? And he's like, I haven't got the faintest idea. She talks, we think, we're not sure. Um, there's so many jobs. How could you possibly say this is the list of jobs? They still do that. They
That
still
I find it incredible. I mean, I should be a librarian according to my test, my thing.
do.
I can't keep my mouth shut. I tell her how I would have been a librarian. It was just ridiculous. But I mean, they're a nonsense. But yes, it should be right. What gives you energy? Because guess what? If you
Yeah.
enjoy it, you're going to put more effort in.
Yes.
You're going to perform at a higher level.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer. It's really simple. If I
Yeah.
really enjoy a certain sport, guess what? I really get into it and I
Good,
put
isn't
my
it?
best. Now, I may not be the best in the world ever, but I know that I can progress.
Yeah.
So I can I can get better
Yeah.
because I'm enjoying it. I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
have to be the best, but I know I can improve. And that
Yeah.
self-improvement piece and all of that sort of stuff. What does that do from a work point of view? Well, it helps the organization at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
all of
I'm
those
a big
things.
fan of, huge fan of do what you love. Huge fan of
Yeah.
it. And I know it's kind of that's not really a new philosophy. And but I
But
think
people forget it, don't they?
in today's economy, there used to be God, now what was it called? Was it Rich Dad Poor Dad, or was it? No, the Monk and the Riddle. The Monk and the Riddle is a book. It's all about making a living out of having a life. So it was all about follow your purpose, and then
Yeah.
money will
Yeah.
flow. But I think it's probably a couple of decades old now, so it's not so useful. But I think the philosophy of that is more feasible in the world we live in today than it ever was before,
Mhm.
because where how you can earn money in today's economy is there's a plethora of other ways to do it, whereas 2 decades ago we were still in the you get a job, you work for somebody else, and entrepreneurship is kind of the small percentage of
Mm.
society,
Mm.
whereas now I think the world has opened up to so much more possibility for people. Therefore, this idea that you can make a living whilst doing what you love, I think, is much more real than it
Yeah.
ever has been before. And so I suppose the first step is find out what you love. And when you ask kids, they often don't know what they love.
No,
So it's
exactly.
kind of in fact, when my kids say to me about I don't know what I love, I'll say, so just do something, try anything, because you actually get to know what you love by
Yes.
taking any opportunity and seeing what's happened. If you'd have asked me 30 years ago what I wanted to do for a career, I certainly wouldn't have said, I wouldn't have described this job. Neither would I have said, I'd like to work in a call center, please, for an American bank. But
Yeah. Yeah.
that was the next thing that came up. And I'm a big fan of seize the opportunity,
Yeah.
grip whatever comes in front of you next, because you'll either learn you love it or you'll learn you hate it. And actually, interestingly, it was the start of my career, because what I learned was that particular company had amazing culture, and it taught me everything I needed to know back then about what makes great company culture. So even though I was answering calls, actually
Yeah.
quite enjoyed chatting to people. I think that's probably hard for you to imagine how much I enjoyed talking to customers. But it's like you might have said, "Who wants to be a call center agent?" Well, actually, it taught me a lot of stuff that meant I could do what I do now. And so I always say to my three, if you don't know what to do something, pick something, and see what happens, because then opportunity will
And it's
present
linked.
itself.
Absolutely. And actually, it was quite interesting sort of link to a chat with Tarima, who's a manifesting coach, and talking about that sort of universal piece. The energy is through everything. Now, whether you want to go down that sort of route or not is entirely up to you. However, there is a knock-on effect. If you behave or act in a certain way, it will have a knock-on effect.
Yes.
If you go into any situation with openness, energy, guess what you're going to get back?
Yeah.
And if you
Yeah.
go in there with your right, that's it, I'm not gonna, you don't like this, you ain't gonna like it.
No.
It's an easy equation to work with, but
Oh.
hard for some people to actually acknowledge,
Yeah.
because I think that one of the other issues we have with motivation these days is, and I mentioned, can you motivate other people? I think with a lot of people, they would say, well, yeah, I'm waiting for somebody to come through my screen. And I follow all of the influencers on Instagram,
Yeah.
and none of them are motivating me.
Yeah.
I go on YouTube and I click every single motivational video, with an American voiceover, lots of people playing sport with music playing, and my God, come out and make it smash your day. But I watch those and it doesn't work. Why aren't I getting this back?
Why aren't I motivated? It was just yesterday morning, I was listening to Times Radio, and there was, I don't know the guy's name, but he's written a book called Fluke. I can't remember. It's like
his name. I recognise the book name.
I wrote down the name Fluke on my phone. I was like, I'm going to buy that. I can't remember the guy's name, but he had a little phrase. I thought, I so believe that, and I'm definitely going to share it the next time I get a chance. So here you go. I'm showing it on your podcast. He said, if you can walk around your life realizing we control nothing, but we influence everything. And I was like, that's a great way that's to that point of, you can't control what happens to you. You can't control, he was saying you can't control anything, like, the world just exists as it exists, you can't control it. But if you imagine that you can influence everything through the way that you show up to every nanosecond of every situation, you are effectively influencing the universe. And he does this whole thing about one thing leads to another thing, which leads, so everything's connected. And it's connected in the way that you choose to show up and influence it. Can't control it, but you can. I was like, that's my philosophy for life. You can't control it, but you can definitely influence it. You can't control whether you're going to enjoy something or not, but you can control whether you show up with a smile on your face and a bit of energy. You can't control. You talked about the networking meetings. You can't control whether it will deliver a good outcome, but you can definitely control how many people you spoke to and whether you were interesting and curious about other. It's like you can't control, but you can influence. Firmly. Yeah.
There's another top tip from Sally there, listeners. And time is zooming past, so I think we're going to have to start to wrap it up. But thank you ever so much for that, Sally. Just to go back very briefly, and I've asked all my guests, what's the one thing you'd like to say to the listeners now about motivation? I know you've spoken about a number throughout this particular podcast, but what's the one thing if you said, right, here's a bit of wisdom, here's a top tip about your motivation and how you keep that energy, how you keep umphing as you go through your life, what would it be?
I knew you were going to ask what's the one thing. I just think there's never just one thing. But I think my one thing is, we don't all have the same skill, but we all have choice. And so, with whatever skills you've got, with whoever you are, with whatever your backdrop, your experiences, whatever's happened in life, we've all got very different, histories, and we're all very different people. Everybody gets the choice of whether you choose to show up and lean in and jump in and, smile a bit and be a bit full of energy and have a bit of a laugh, or not. And that doesn't require any skill. So I just say, show up, have a smile, find joy somewhere, and it's a good place to start.
Love it. That's fantastic. And if people would like to continue sharing in your joy and energy and fun on LinkedIn and stuff like that, can they connect with you? Can they follow you on LinkedIn? How does that work?
They should definitely follow me on LinkedIn. I mostly blog about funny stuff. Being a middle-aged female business traveler, I blog about working mums and sometimes a little bit about leadership, because obviously that is my space. But I try and blog about stuff that will make people smile with maybe a tinsy bit of learning in there somewhere. So they should follow me. I'm the chief umpher on LinkedIn. So if you find Sally Earnshaw, chief umpher, follow me, and we'll have a bit of a chuckle.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much. Nice to speak to you, and see you again soon.
Thank you.
This was a Switch Motivation production from Switch Performance Limited. Music by Dennis Kischuk from Pixabay, the Motivational Mindset podcast. Download, listen, subscribe.